when I had my first show, I never thought I would have a show on the Holocaust work. When I started doing them, I was doing them for myself. You know, I decided I needed to do this, and I was doing it. And someone who knew me worked at Queensborough Community College, and they were putting on a show of women, second-generation women. So I did that. And she said, do you have anything to do, you know, do you have anything from the Holocaust? And I said, well, I have some things, but, you know, I didn't think of it as my body of work. And she looked at it and liked it and said, oh, would you be willing to show them? And I said, sure, partly because I was glad to get a show anywhere. But then the response made me really think differently about the work, which led me to realize that this was really a subject that people responded to the work. So that's how I made it. But my father, after the show, was extremely touched by the show. He was gratified. He was, you know, he said to me, you know, you've carried on what I would have wanted you to carry on of my, you know, my feelings about the Holocaust and so.
That's wonderful.
Yeah.
It's wonderful that he saw it.
Yes, yes.
And that he said that.
Yeah.
Did your mother go to the show?
My mother went to the show. She thought it was nice. You know, that went along with, at that point in her life, she couldn't understand why I'd spend all my free time painting, or why I would organize my life so I had time to paint.
So how old were you when this happened, this show?
I was well into my 30s.
And this was your first show?
My first show of Holocaust, yeah.
And this was
my first, I mean, I was one of 4 women, but probably the largest. I'd been in group shows before them.
And it was also a time when your father was talking more about it,
right,
too. That was when he was opening up.
About it as well.
Right. What do you remember any in particular question that you had that you felt now I can finally ask him?
I don't think, and this could be a protective thing. My husband Peter always says I was very protective of my parents. So I don't think I would have factually asked, you know. I mean, my mother, I don't know if my mother said it, so I might have asked her. My mother claimed she never saw any dead people. So I don't, it seems pretty hard for me to believe that's true. So I don't remember asking factual questions like that of them. You know.
Well, you mentioned,
where were you? When were you there?
But not how did you feel, or
right.
Or,
when were you separated from your own parents? You know, when did you know this or that about a sibling, their sibling?
Right. You asked that kind of question, but that was
okay.
A fact.
Right.
You mentioned you were protective of them. Did you see them as fragile and needing protection?
I guess I must have. You know, I guess I must have. Yeah.
At least emotionally.
Right. Emotionally. Yeah.
Was there anything that they did tell you that particularly upset you about their experiences, either when you were a child or even as an adult?
No, I don't think of it as being upset. I think of it as being amazed, you know, that what human nature can go through and get over, more than upset. I mean, I guess I was upset, but I mean, you know, when I asked my father for the photographs and looked at them the first time, and today, you know, we see these things all over that could be good or bad. I mean, they lose their effect that you see, you know, imagery can lose an effect because you see it all the time.
Well, these were the forbidden pictures.
Right, the forbidden pictures.
That you weren't really supposed to have anyone see.
Right, so. And you know, I was 18, the Vietnam War, my older brother could have been drafted, so we were against war, you know. I don't know, you know, historically, philosophically, that I really understood war beyond that war is bad. That comes from having parents who were Holocaust survivors, knowing I had a brother. So, then you become the hippie, then you protest the war, you go down to Washington, you go to Woodstock, you do those things which you think of at the time are you're protesting.
You were mentioning that, when you thought about it, you marvel at human resilience, sort of how they, so in some ways, did you see your parents as strong, that they managed to reestablish their lives?
I think I did.
And you saw them as fragile.
Right. And especially my father, especially my father. And when he was dying, he died of cancer. When he got ill, initially he said to me he was given a second life. And so I realized that the way he saw his surviving was that he had been given a second chance at life, and that he fought that, so he will fight this till he got ill. And when he got ill and realized that he was dying, he said, "I'm dying," and I did what I could do, and and that was that. So he definitely, or his death, and again, it was, he was the first of my parents to die, really left me, because of things we spoke about around his death, that you better live every minute you've got to live, because that's what you've got. You don't know when it's over, and life was very precious. He didn't leave me with any other feeling except that life is a very precious thing.
Which is really
what better thing could you want to be left with? Yes.
Now, what year did he die?
I'm not good with years, but
about 20 years ago, so around 1980.
About 18 years ago, 82 maybe. Well, let's say 82 now. My younger son, no, it couldn't have been 82, so it couldn't have been that many. Well, 82 would have been 32 years, 80.
Oh, you're right.
Because my younger son was about 4, and he was born in 87, so 92 maybe.
92?
Yeah.
And your mother just 8 years ago, so that would be about 2002?
Right. She died, maybe it's 9 years now. She died right the March before, so
before 9/11.
Yeah.
We had alluded to your becoming a teacher, but we didn't really go into how that happened and where you teach. So let's go back a minute, and perhaps you can tell us about that.
Well, I went to college, went to graduate school, got an MFA degree, never took ed credits. And when I got out of school, I continued doing what I actually was doing, which was I was working in youth groups and adjuncting in 2 different colleges. And just by chance, the art teacher at Fordham Prep, it was a part-time job at the time, was leaving maternity leave in April. They were looking for someone to replace her, a friend of a friend. I ended up with the job there, not thinking that would be it for 2 months. And then the person they hired found a full-time job, so they asked me if I wanted to stay on, and I said yes. So that's how I started teaching. I mean, ideally I thought I would be a college teacher, but that was difficult. So as Fordham Prep added on more days, I decided I was going to have children. When my son was born, I opted for that job over adjuncting, because that I knew that I'd have that with adjuncting every semester. I didn't know if I'd have a class or not have a class. So that became a career.
And you're still there?
And I'm still there
after
30 years later.
And can you tell us just what kind of school Fordham Prep is?
Fordham Prep is an all-boys Jesuit high school.
To go back to your mother for a minute, we were just talking about she passed away before 9/11. Had she been sick for a long time?
She had been diagnosed with lymphoma 2 years before. She was asymptomatic, going for CAT scans. And so when the lymphoma became aggressive, she started chemotherapy, but died within 3 months. And I think, part of that was she had had enough. So she died within 3 months of starting chemo.
Were you the person who was primarily her caretaker and just helped her make decisions and such?
Myself and my younger brother. My older brother lives in Vermont, so it was basically the two of us.